Can edit it too.
Yeah. We have a small group. Hillary had a good idea that we could just kind of have a discussion at the end.
Yeah.
And keep it loose.
So most of the people joining, are they planners, designers? Yeah.
There's a whole spectrum, yeah.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I think you can hear us, see us, hopefully. We're just kind of waiting, giving folks a few minutes since you have to register. I want to make sure everyone gets a few minutes, but and then we'll start. But yeah, there are folks from our Transportation Bureau, probably attending, folks from our planning departments in several different bureaus, our Parks Department, possibly
Yeah, okay.
Policy. So there's a kind of a range.
Super good.
Yeah.
Can't wait for the discussion, actually.
Yeah. For those folks just joining, we're giving participants a few minutes just to get in. So we'll start about 10:05. So you don't think we're just kind of sitting here twiddling our thumbs.
Oh, I could only, okay, I'm, as I said, kind of new to Zoom. So I thought I thought it was still just the three of us. Now I can see that. Okay, this is great. This is,
I know, yeah, we have a good crowd here. Yeah, that's good.
We could talk about the buttons on the bottom just in case anybody's new to Zoom.
Yeah.
You should be able to post reactions. There's a button at the bottom for reactions. You hear something you like, you can throw up a heart or clapping hands. And you should be able to, participants should be able to raise their hand. And when we get to the questions, we can allow folks to talk.
Thank you, Hillary. Maya, out of curiosity, what do you guys prefer to use out there in Copenhagen? What do you guys
we're on Teams usually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last week I had a bunch of meetings on Google Meet. Yeah. I feel like because I used to use Zoom more than Teams, and then now Teams has kind of taken over my it's what it's kind of taken over. It's what I'm most used to and how I'm used to like stepping into a digital space. And every time you go into a new one, it's like, oh, okay, how does this work? And I think there's also just a lot of maybe trauma is too big a word, but like all of those tech failures that we've all experienced. And I mentioned to you before that I'm a bit scared of tech and all the things that can go wrong. So well, I'm happy you can see me and hear me. So
yeah, we can hear you. And we have one question. Grace, did you have a question?
I did not. I must accidentally hit that.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
How did I do that? Obviously, I'm not very familiar with Zoom either.
I'm gonna mute you.
Oh.
All right. Well, we're at 10:05 and we've got about 27 people. So I say, well, let's get started, and then folks can keep on joining as we move through this. So let's see. I'm going to remove permission to talk. And then, so thank you for joining us today. We have, as most of you know, we're here to talk about how urban spaces can be designed to better contribute to the mental well-being of teenage girls, or really teenagers in general. And we're really fortunate to be joined today by Maya Shapiro, all the way from Copenhagen. And while working for the architectural firm Henning Larsen, she's been studying this subject for the past couple of years and has generously agreed to share some of their findings and process with us today. And since we only have an hour, I'm going to ask you to save your questions for the end, put them in the chat, and we'll have time at the end of the session to do Q&A. So with that, I'm going to turn this presentation over to Maya, and thanks everyone for joining us.
All right. Let's see how smoothly I can do this. Now I've lost the. Oh, no, you can't see my screen, can you? I did this before.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
You can see my screen?
Yes. And then
Okay.
you want to put presentation view?
Is it?
It's
Isn't
just
it?
showing. It's not. It's like
Oh.
you can see the whole interface for PowerPoint right now.
That's weird. It's presentation view for me.
Okay. Well,
Is it still not presentation view?
it is not. I wonder.
Oh.
It looks like you have it selected. I don't know why it's not coming in on our end. Yeah, I think it's fine to continue, and we can still see the slides. And
Maybe I'll. Is that?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So sorry for all this nonsense on the side here. I don't know how to get rid of that. So, okay. So you can. This is what you're seeing. You're seeing my. Maybe I can do that, and then it's even bigger. Yeah. A little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that, everyone. I'm going to try presentation view just one more time to. Still no. Oh, that's really frustrating.
I know, but we can see it, so don't.
Okay. All right. Okay. So hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, as Cassie said, my name is Maya Shapiro. I have been with Henning Larsen for about 3 years now. My role is social impact and co-creation lead, which means that I'm very much focused on people, culture, and how that intersects with place, relationships to place, cultural analysis, things like that. I'm not an architect or a designer. I'm kind of a non-architect in this space, which is, I feel like, part of my introduction most of the time. So I studied anthropology. So with this background in social sciences, I'm really looking at that dialectic relationship between people and place, and how we can work with that in the best way to create social impact in the work that we do. So what I'll cover today is firstly just a quick introduction to Henning Larsen, and before I speak about the research project that we did focusing on teenage girls and mental health and well-being. And yeah, so a little bit of, why, the premise to the research before going into research design and methodology. Then I'll walk you through some of our findings and analysis process. And then the result is this abstract vision of a city informed by the perspectives of teenage girls with interventions that are informed by the data that we gathered. And then we have some exciting next steps for this project, and then some time for Q&A. So yes, Henning Larsen, we're a design studio specializing in architecture, landscape, and urbanism. We are based in 8 different countries. Copenhagen is kind of our mothership, our headquarters. It's where we're from, originally founded by Danish architect Henning Larsen quite some time ago. Over 600 people working in lots of different cultures, contexts. So I think, yeah, this perspective on people and place couldn't be more relevant. We like to say that we work with a culture of curiosity, and that this is kind of part of our, DNA, and asking questions and being innovative and looking at new opportunities to create meaningful impact, whether that's through materials or looking at biodiversity, microclimate, and of course people and cultures. We have a decidedly curious process, which starts off with a rigorous stage of data collection, research, analysis, and we take a lot of pride in this stage before going into strategic and architectural concept. So before we sketch anything, we like to really do a deep dive into where we're working and what kind of impact we can have in that space. And the research project that I'll present to you now is very much within this kind of spirit of doing research, rigorous investigations of things that we're interested in that can elevate our design. So this research project, this was our research question: how can the design of urban spaces contribute to the mental health and well-being of teenage girls? And this was really born out of an understanding that this is maybe missing from the landscape, that the way that we design is filled with assumptions about teenagers, and maybe specifically teenage girls at this intersection of age and gender. They're rather underrepresented in participatory processes, and also they're not really present in some of those assumptions that we have to, realistically, sometimes we have very short deadlines, and, you have to make quick decisions. But where is this user group in some of those quick decisions if we're looking to create urban spaces where people thrive? So why teenage girls, and why mental health and well-being? Well, first and foremost, there is a clear disparity between how girls and young women use urban spaces and how boys and young men use urban spaces. This is a few different studies that were done here in Europe, indicating that there is a rather significant gap. I think this study here on the right of your screens, this is quite a dramatic contrast. So we have, this is a study that was titled "Who Plays Outside?" Between the age of 0 and 4, we have 55% boys, 45% girls. And then something really dramatic happens in the age of 13 and older, where it goes to 77% boys and 23% girls. So again, really indicating that disparity between girls and boys and how they use urban spaces, and specifically active urban spaces. Additionally, we are still, working against certain narratives and norms, gender stereotypes, expectations that limit girls and young women in certain ways, and set certain expectations of how they should behave, who is allowed to do what, where. A lot of this is also based on, assumptions relating to safety, and don't do this, don't do that, don't go there. But it's an understanding that this user group has limitations that maybe others don't face in how they relate and experience urban spaces. Additionally, girls and mental health, we see a specific vulnerability amongst this user group. They're more vulnerable to higher stress levels and risks relating to mental health, which this is a study that was done here in Denmark in 2021. This is also going into the age group of 25 to 34. So really there is a specific issue within this space of mental well-being. One thing that's really, really important for me to say is that we didn't come to this project with any sort of expectation that the built environment can fix the issue of mental health and eliminate all the risks. But the way we see this project is really as an attempt to be part of discourse, part of a coalition of different groups, whether it's policymakers or educators, who are doing what they can to create healthy environments where some of these risks are maybe mitigated as much as they can be. As much as designers like to think they can fix everything, we know that we can't. Another aspect to why this user group is that this is a really interesting moment in a person's life. So many changes are happening. There's an awareness that we develop about other people, the gaze of others, certain expectations. They're also gaining a lot of freedom and agency to explore the city however they would like, but also kind of stepping into a new social life and what that might look like. And urban spaces, they're the backdrop to all of these things happening. And lastly, and I think this is maybe the most important, is that they have a lot to say, interesting perspectives, and they want to be heard. So our responsibility to do the listening and be active in listening. Throughout the presentation, I have some quotes from the study, and I think they say it way better than I do, so I'll just read this quote. I think grown-ups make a lot of assumptions about what it's like to be young. They think we're lazy and weird and that we're always on social media. And of course, we're different to grown-ups. We're a different generation, but between us, we're not all the same. We don't all deal with the same problems. Older people should just stop and listen a bit more, because otherwise you can't know what's on our mind. It's just wrong to make assumptions about why people are doing what they're doing. And just to be on the receiving end of a comment like that, doing an interview with a teenage girl, I felt like, okay, we're definitely doing something right by doing this project. So research design and methodology. I'm so sorry about all these things on the sides, by the way. So we established this kind of impact-driven design process where we tried to define the challenge of what we're trying to achieve for this user group. And I think the thing that really sets this process apart, besides the fact that we're committed to monitoring and evaluating the impact that we have in pilot projects that we'll do going forward, is that we're really centering user experience. So part of, again, like before we start sketching or designing, we want to understand what is the desired user experience that we'd like to create. And we went about this through a rather multidisciplinary approach. We combined field work and kind of an applied anthropology approach with perspectives from what we called an expert group. There's practitioners in lots of different spaces, educators, psychologists, gender, sociologists and anthropologists within the space of gender. And then we also had our academic partners who supported us with a literature review, which we were hoping would be a lot more extensive than it actually was, which was a really strong indication of the fact that there's a gap in knowledge production about this intersection of urban space, gender, well-being. So it was a huge support, but everybody was like, oh, where's the data? Where's the research? So I mean, even more reason to go out and seek the information ourselves, which is what we did through field work. We did a series of go-along interviews with around 20 girls, and the structure of this was that they would choose a location to meet in the city, and then they would kind of guide us through the city from their perspective. So the city became this kind of third party in the conversation, and provided like the stimuli to continue the conversation and continuously have them narrate their experience. besides that, we also did video diaries. This was really cool because it allowed for some girls who I think were maybe a bit uncomfortable with the idea of doing an interview. So they would record a day in their life, 2 days actually, one weekday, one weekend, and then they shared that with us. And then besides that, we also had 8 girls, come into 2 workshops here in the office. And that was kind of cool as well, to bring them into our space and have this really feel like a co-creation moment. Being that I'm an anthropologist, I have to say a little word on, the significance of really meeting with real people and understanding the consequences, the very real consequences that the built environment has on their life, and seeking those lived experiences to inform ourselves with. There's so much to gain from this. I tried to sum it up here, but it's really an opportunity to break away from stereotypes and dive deeper into some, generic terms of people say things like inclusive spaces or a sense of safety, and we can really explore what that means for the individual, which is such a powerful thing. Besides that, we can also look at, for example, the data that I showed before. None of that data, despite the fact that it shows the urgency of doing this type of work, it doesn't really indicate to us why things are the way that they are. So we can see a pattern, and then we can explore why the pattern is happening, why are things taking place the way that they do. Besides that, we can also kind of broaden our grasp of user needs. So we're looking at individuals, we're looking at a specific user group, but by doing that, we're actually able to map out a much wider range of user needs as a whole. The kind of success criteria of this is not only that, girls have a new relationship to the city, or, it's potentially creating new urban experiences that don't currently exist. And that can really support other user groups as well, besides the one that we've decided to focus on. And that really happens because of the, the situation where certain user groups are underrepresented. By seeking their perspective, we can really do this kind of gesture of broadening our understanding. And then besides that, it's an opportunity to empower and have people really understand that they are experts on their lives, and they have insight that we would not have otherwise. Sorry. And then this was how we kind of processed all of our data. So we worked with this theoretical framework of 6 psychological needs. And of course, these play out differently for different people. But it was kind of useful in understanding how we can think about mental health and well-being in urban spaces and in the built environment. I mean, I could say, I think I'll save this for later, actually. So our findings at a glance, we had a lot of different themes that kept coming up. One of them was this notion of in-betweenness and straddling adulthood and childhood, and seeing seeing things and experiencing things in kind of like a split screen almost. This was really, really, really intriguing to converse with. And then the other thing that's kind of interesting about in-betweenness is that it allows for a duality and an understanding that they're embodying that duality in everything that they do. So there's ideas of, agency and having control and doing things my own way, but then there's also a sense of maybe being controlled, and this is when you need to come home, and how you kind of process all of those things at once. And just to say a little bit more about in-betweenness, actually I'll let the girls say more about in-betweenness. So firstly, when you're a kid, you just follow your parents, but when you grow up, you get to know the city more and explore it for yourself. You get to find hidden things and secret places. So this idea that your relationship with the city is changing was a really exciting thing to come into contact with. And then this one down here, I think, is really strong. And I don't know about you, but every time I read this, I feel like I can relate, even though I'm not a teenage girl. So maybe an experience of in-betweenness that's much wider than just this user group. So I feel like this is just an awkward age when you're not an adult, but you're not a kid either. It feels like you're expected to act more mature, but you also can't act too mature. If I were to go on these swings, there would be no one around my age. It's like I'm too old for them. But if I were to smoke over there on the side, people would think I'm too young for that. It's just awkward that way. Sometimes I want to be older, but I feel like that also comes with way more responsibility. Other times I just want to be a kid again and have my problems solve themselves with a hug from my mom. So gathering all these lived experiences, what we did is we kind of analyzed them and processed them to create 3 design drivers that acted as the 3 urban experiences, desired experiences that we wanted to design for. In between us being this kind of overarching theme and those 3 guiding our design. And I think what's interesting about these is that they really build upon each other. So firstly, flow is really rather basic. It's like getting from A to B, feeling comfortable, feeling safe to do that. But it can also be an opportunity for intrigue and imagination and, exploration. And this was really central because we found that the girls, they're walking a lot, they're exploring a lot. So while it might be, getting from A to B, it can be so much more. And then building upon that, once you have this comfort of moving comfortably around your city, you can also feel those pulls and invitations to stay in a place and to be, to linger, to experience things for a little while longer. And this can be for, a few minutes, it can be for half an hour, it can be for longer than that as well. And then finally, play. This really requires a sense of comfort and feeling that you can let go, that you can be silly. Sometimes I think people kind of skip these first 2 and think about, oh, how can we create new playful experiences in the city without really understanding that we have to build that level of comfort until we get to silliness is like a big expectation actually of people. And playfulness is not something that we can just assume will happen. So unfolding these further, we kind of looked at how the different psychological needs play out for each one. So as I said before, flow really requires a sense of safety, but it's also an opportunity for stimulation and maybe also creating a sense of identity for different parts of the city that you can relate to and create familiarity with. And as I said before, we really found that they're just urban explorers kind of out seeing the city in new eyes every day as they get more and more agency. To be in the city, again, requires a level of safety that we can't underestimate. And then it's also an opportunity to kind of create a sense of ownership. So this space can be mine for a second, and then we have to think about scale. Can this feel like it's mine in the sense that nobody else can see me? But how do I still maintain that sense of safety, eyes on the street, visibility kind of balance, which is really interesting. Again, another opportunity to create identity, placemaking, and then you can have this relationship that's very much yours. So finding your place in the city. And then, of course, it's also an opportunity for social interactions and allowing for gatherings for this user group. It's also important to say that, teenagers, they don't have a ton of, purchase power. They're not like in cafes all the time and, maybe window shopping at malls, but, creating spaces where they can gather is really, really meaningful. This girl said something about there needs to be room for us in the city. And I thought that was like kind of philosophical and profound somehow, that, what is space and how are you allowed to take up space? And the city can be an invitation to do that. Play. So I think these quotes are really nice. I might just read these. This one here in the middle, she says, "I love it when I get a chance to be silly and joke around. It makes me feel like a child again." I think a lot of people really miss that feeling. And not just people my age, also adults. We don't have to be responsible and mature all the time. one thing that was interesting about play is that it's often met with a sense of barriers, like I'm too old for this, I'm too young for that. And another thing that was interesting about it is that they wouldn't use the term play. They wouldn't say it. It was kind of our so actually, when we were writing up the report, I was like, oh, should we use the word play? They wouldn't use the word play, but it really is what it is. It's the kind of ability to imagine and be creative in how you use the city. So our abstract city, this is what it looked like. It's kind of based on some of the qualities, the spatial qualities, the scale, the proximity to the water, things that you find in Copenhagen, also cycling, cycling infrastructure and things like that. But it's not Copenhagen. It's meant to be kind of an abstracted canvas on which we worked with different interventions to create the experiences that we wanted to create. On each one of these maps that we created a series of maps of the city, each time highlighting the different experience that we wanted to create. And all of these quotes were things that came up in our conversations. And I'll share these slides, and I encourage you to look at this in more detail because they're really, yeah, it's, as I said before, they have a lot to say, a wish to be heard. Yeah, and maybe I'll just walk you through some of these interventions that we came up with. And I think I should say that this was really born out of an understanding that we can alter urban experiences in meaningful ways. It's not kind of like a plug and play approach. It's maybe more like how we can combine different interventions along with this meaningful process to create significant impact. So here we're looking at, widening bike lanes and creating like opportunities for stimulation where there may be lacking. This was, the idea of having like active and lively streets and playing with scale in different ways. One thing that came up a lot is that, there are certain times of day where a small scale is really intriguing and exciting to explore. And then as soon as it gets dark, it's like, no, now we need the wide streets and the sense of, a lot of light and visibility. Here we have some interventions relating to flow that are maybe a little bit more playful. Here we have these like stepping stones, so super simple, but the idea here was that we can create an opportunity for low stakes play through flow. So you can, for a moment, have like a little adrenaline rush, feel a little bit, kind of playful, but you're doing it on your way somewhere. So it's not necessarily creating a destination in itself, but understanding that there's so many little moments that can happen along one's journey. Another thing that I think was interesting was wayfinding. So we called it like find your stars. So this understanding that different people have different guiding, like a North Star in the city, in the urban landscape that they refer to, and like, okay, now I know where I am. And that creates so much safety and so much familiarity, just being able to orient yourself. Another thing that we had here was some height and an opportunity for new perspectives, and this idea that you can linger just for a little moment and continue on your way, or maybe go outside of, like, take a little detour to see a view from a different perspective. So here is our map relating to being in the city. So, lingering and staying and enjoying urban spaces, kind of like an urban living room, and understanding that it's yours to occupy. Here there were things about, definitely things relating to access to public bathrooms. This happens so often in my interviews that I would ask them at the end, like, is there anything that you think I should have asked, or is there anything you really want to say that we haven't talked about? And it was always like, there aren't enough public bathrooms. So, you know, how do we indicate that, like, you're invited, there's room for you here? And, you know, whether it's things being free, or being able to kind of move furniture around in order to create a space that feels like your own, all of those things together can be thought of as an invitation. And here we have some of those interventions. So here on the right, we have these like modular seats. This one here, I think, is really, you know, very simple, just a high back bench. So you don't need to be watching your back all the time. You can kind of feel like you own this little niche, and you can look out and feel that like you know what's going on. Here we have another intervention relating to height and you know, an opportunity to get a different perspective, also some people watching. That was a big theme. And, you know, some of these, whether it's the seating or this bench, this round bench, for example, the creating opportunities for eye contact, especially when people gather, is a way of, you know, I'm looking out over your back, you're looking behind me. So all directions are kind of covered, this kind of 360 view, and we can create a sense of safety in that togetherness, which is really strong. Here we have some seating close to, you know, a skate park or other kind of active areas. If we think about that disparity that I mentioned before in active spaces, how do we still invite teenage girls into those, into that space with the existing infrastructure that we have? And I mentioned before things being, you know, free or cheap, more public restrooms, and yeah, I could, maybe we can, if you have questions about these, I can speak more. This one was our map of play. And there were so many cool ideas that came out of this, whether it's like spaces where you can paint or, you know, express your creativity. There was also an understanding that, you know, their hobbies are maybe somewhat underrepresented. So can we create spaces that accommodate different activities in the city? There was a girl who said that, like, oh, I would totally go and practice my instrument outside. And I was like, okay, that's super cool. But she clearly felt like that wasn't something that the city allowed for or encouraged. And here are some of those interventions that we came up with. These are the more kind of active ones, and they might seem quite similar to things that we already see in an urban landscape. If we think, like, here we have like basketball hoops, for example, but this is obviously not a basketball court. And so maybe some of the activities that we already know, especially sports that have like a, you know, you can be good at it, you can be bad at it. You know, this idea of like internalizing or being aware of how you perform is really kind of central to the teenage experience. So creating opportunities to do things in a way where there isn't a win or a lose. There isn't a one way to play. Here we have some more of these interventions that are like, how do I play here? What do I do? You can be creative and imagine lots of different ways to engage with the space and express your creativity and with, you know, using the space differently each time. I have here some QR codes if anybody's interested in downloading our process guide and design guide. This presentation was kind of a boiled down overview of what's in there. There's a lot more to dive into, so I encourage you to download those if you're interested. And maybe just a quick word on what's next for us. We just this week, we received funding to do a pilot project in Esbjerg, which is a rather industrial mid-sized city in the west coast of Denmark. And we're super
Maya, you cut out, your sound cut out for a minute there, like towards the end. Oh no.
Can you hear me? No?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
we just missed like the last half of the what you guys are doing.
Yeah, so we've just received funding to do some pilot projects in this city in Denmark. It's called Esbjerg. It's on the west coast of Denmark. And the city has kind of mapped out some areas in which we could intervene. One of them is just a parking lot. Another is an unused space outside the library. So we're super, super excited to unfold this process again, engaging with local girls and getting their perspectives on what it's like to be a teenager in this space, and then thinking about what these interventions might look like. And what's really, really exciting about this process is that we've partnered with a little studio that collects unused or recycled materials and has kind of circularity as their key kind of design driver. And we're going to be engaging with the girls in this participatory process, also building the interventions together with these recycled materials. So we're super, super excited about that. Yeah, that's all I have.
That's great. This is really wonderful work, Maya. I'm putting a link to.
Oh, now I can't hear you.
No, that's because I'm muted.
Okay.
I was just saying that great work. This is really wonderful to hear, and thank you for sharing. And I put a link to the project website in the chat too. And I think now we can open up for questions. If anyone has any questions for Maya, or we can, I've got questions. I can start us off, but let's see. Nothing yet. All right, so I'll start us off here. We've got a good amount of time to have a discussion, so please join in if you can. I'm curious, do you see, as you work in on this kind of this first site, this prototype, do you think the three, like the to play, to be, to flow, do you think those will shift and change? Do you see that changing maybe, or?
It's a good question. I mean, I think generally my approach to user engagement is just to kind of come as, blank canvas as I can. Yeah. But given the scale, I mean, Copenhagen is not a big city, but Esbjerg is much smaller. So I do wonder about the kind of the journeys that people take, and I'm one assumption that I have that I'll need to explore is, in a bigger city, the use of public space and meeting in public space is often like the most convenient, the option that makes the most sense. And in a smaller city, I wonder if more of that time is spent in the home. And yeah, I think that's kind of something that's on my mind a little bit in terms of flow, and maybe kind of, rather than this very kind of open and explorative experience of, starting a journey and it not having an end, maybe in a smaller scale city, the journeys are, the destinations are more known, and there's maybe slightly less exploration. I don't know. I'm really, really curious to find out.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you go about choosing your participants? Do you advertise for that, or how do you do that?
So it's a tricky one, especially because we're talking about teenagers. They're minors. We need their parents' consent, and so the outreach is a little bit tricky. And we actually found that so we went through schools, we went through different youth programs. We tried to get participants from different parts of the city, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different ethnic backgrounds. Like we really did our best to think about the diversity that Copenhagen, that is part of Copenhagen, and to really seek out those voices as best we could. We found that sometimes going through schools, public schools, the teachers were a bit like concerned that it was like more work for them, and what does this require? What do you need? What do you like? It was really hard to convince some of the adults that all we need is just 5 minutes to speak to them and see if they're interested, and then whoever is interested can sign up. And the way that we were intentional about like gathering different voices is where we had those conversations and where we went to, but then we really wanted them to feel like it was something that they were doing out of their own agency and choosing to engage in this. And the fact that we had the 3 different options, like some were really excited to come to the office and see what an architecture studio looks like, and to do the workshop here. Some were a bit uncomfortable with the idea of most of the girls we engaged with through interviews, and then the ones that weren't comfortable with that did the video diary. So I think having the different methods to engage was really beneficial in getting different voices heard. But it's a tricky one. It took longer than we were. Yeah, it's tricky, but it's worthwhile.
It sounds super tricky.
Yeah.
We have a couple questions now. That's great. First, I'm gonna directly April. April Bortensen, sorry if I botched your last name. We provided a link to the documents in the project at the beginning of the chat. So if you go to that link, you go all the way to the bottom. You can find you can download the 2 documents for the project if you didn't get the QR code. And then, okay, first question is, sorry, I just lost it. Okay. Do you think the city, or it says, thanks so much for the presentation. In order to reach the design's full potential, do you think city policy would also need to change? Is there openness beyond designers and the audience to make these changes?
I don't know what it's like in Portland and in the US, but specifically
Sure.
the matter of mental health and well-being is really high right now on the agenda in Europe. And I think a lot of municipalities and different organizations have the intention of tackling this issue, but they don't necessarily know how. And I think the reason for that is that there isn't one fix. It really is part of seeking opportunities to create impact. If we think about like a systems thinking approach, this is part of being part of creating a shift. So for sure, I think it requires the work of other people as well. And to be, for us to be able to say, like, to come with a suggestion of how we can, engage in a process that can bring us closer, and design interventions that can bring us closer. I think there's a lot of interest in that amongst, different municipalities here in Europe that we've had conversations with. With regards to policy, I don't know that I'm the best person to answer that, but I feel like, I work within the built environment. We work within the built environment, right? So like this is my kind of toolkit immediately goes to that. Yeah, I don't know, but I think it's about like finding the partnerships and creating that like coalition for change.
Yeah, I think some things, at least in Portland, I can see some policy changes being needed. I can't foresee what those are, but it feels like maybe.
In the UK, for example, there's some policies relating to how we go about so like policies relating to process, so policies relating to bringing teenage girls or bringing young women into a design process. That's a policy change, but it's again related to the built environment.
Yeah. Good question. All right, lots of kudos and comments about how it's great to see the comments from the young women and trying to create more welcoming spaces. We have another question here. Can you share more about factors that contribute to boys feeling more comfortable being and playing outside? Curious how much of that comes from socialization versus space design and the interplay between those.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's that interplay is really, really important, and it's really important that we see things through this light. When we approach user groups through a certain bias or assumptions about their needs, what they like, there was a lot of like, oh, girls just like to sit and chit chat, we just need to give them picnic benches, like those are based in something, those are rooted in the way we're socialized, the way, I think that interplay is really, really significant. We shouldn't lose sight of, how biased we potentially are in how we design and the processes that we unfold. In regards to, sense of comfort and, for boys to, I think one thing is representation. Representation is super, super, super important. And if you think about, and it's, again, I don't want to generalize, so not all boys play basketball and skate and whatever, but if a boy has that hobby, he's quite likely to see many adult men doing that same thing, you see people much older than you doing that thing that you're interested in. Girls don't really have that experience. There was a lot of talk about like, oh, I really love swings, but I don't know, I wouldn't do that. And then as we were doing this research and having conversations, outside of work with, my girlfriends or, I heard a lot of like, oh, I really like swings too. And then I was like, but why don't I swing? Why don't you swing? Maybe if I were to swing, and this is just one, it doesn't have to be swinging, but like, maybe if more women played, maybe more girls would play too. If they could see that in their kind of surroundings. And then besides that, there's a lot of, boys being encouraged to be brave, to experiment, to like, it's okay to fail, girls are really instructed to, oh, watch out for your skirt, it's going to get dirty, like being perfect. And now I'm throwing in stereotypes, but they live, they live and breathe, and we have to be active in working against them. And I think some of that, like, not wanting to fail is why it's so important to create opportunities for for activities that don't have a win or fail. Like, there isn't a win or lose. There isn't a way to do it badly or to do it perfectly. There's only just how you want to do it. Yeah. So throwing in some stereotypes there. I hope I haven't offended anyone. Of course, it's not that black or white, but there's still, messaging and media, and they're exposed to it. They internalize it.
Yeah. I think we have any more questions, but I have one. You mentioned in the presentation that the girls that you spoke to didn't want to use the word play.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what words they did use, if you remember. When I see
I think it was just a lot more descriptive about like what it was that they were doing. So for example, they would, sometimes we play hide and seek, or now I said play. Yeah, okay. I didn't no, but there was, for example, I remember quite a few conversations where using your imagination would come up. in really interesting ways. So this one girl told me that she likes to walk. She likes to be part of the flow. She likes the pace of the city and like just kind of walking in like busy places. And she said that she often just like looks at people and imagines like what has happened to them today. Like, oh, this person looks really, really happy. I wonder if they got, you know, a promotion, or oh, this little girl looks like, I don't know, she looks really sad. Maybe she was told off for doing this or that. And just like imagining stories about people and their lives. And this really, for us, it was important to frame that as play, you know, that this is so, this is actually being so active and so playful and so imaginative and so creative. And it really takes kind of expanding our understanding of what play can look like. Yeah. So it was more like descriptive than that. Yeah.
We have one more question. Might be all we have time for since we have 4 minutes. And this is from a follow-up to the previous question about the city policy piece. Let's see, do you have any sense or any future modeling that could predict how long this shift in comfort for young girls and women would take by shifting design?
Well,
that's a hard question.
I think it really requires that we, you know, take the time to go back and see what we've done and monitor and evaluate our work, other people's work. There's a lot of, you know, well-intended initiatives, and it's our responsibility to go back and do the post-occupancy evaluations to see, you know, how has the relationship to this place changed, how the user groups have changed. Yeah, I don't know that I can say like how long these shifts might take, but I guess we could, yeah, it's yeah, I mean, I think for sure when a project is finished, to revisit it over time. Like actually this project that we have now, this pilot project, we've allocated time to go and evaluate the work when it's finished, and then to come back 6 months later and evaluate it again. And in my mind, I was like, oh, is that enough time? Maybe we should come back a year later and see what happened. But it's a bit tricky to like, you know, do a budget plan that everything is concentrated, and then we like leave a little bit of, like a year later, it wasn't received. It was like, it felt a little bit too complicated. Yeah, but to learn, I think it's, you know, we can learn from the work that we do. Yeah.
All right, well, we're pretty much at time. Thank you so much for the presentation and for answering the questions. And for those that are still on, we're going to be sending out an email probably by the end of the week with a link to the recording and the materials, the presentation, so that you can, you know, share with whoever you like. Yeah, thank you for joining us today. And I'll
send a PDF of my slides, and you can add that in as well. Yeah,
that'd be great. Yeah, the slides are great, so that would be good to have as a resource. Okay, well, have a good night in Copenhagen. Thank you for joining us so late. And
no worries. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you, Maya. Thanks. Bye. Bye, everybody.